What's up, guys? eDrone here. Do you want to get your Iflight Nazgul flying on Betaflight 4.1 and utilizing the new RPM filtering? Well, this video is for you. I'm going to show you how to get it all set up. Stay tuned. This is the Iflight Nazgul. This drone is a bind and fly, plug and play quadcopter, and it actually flies pretty decent out of the box. But if you put Betaflight 4.1 on it and utilize the new RPM filtering, this drone flies a lot better, and I think you'll really agree that it definitely adds a little bit more to the table when it comes to the performance of this quadcopter. Now, the one drawback about this drone is it is using BL-Heli-S ESCs. You have to utilize a specific firmware to be able to use BL-Heli-S ESCs with the new bidirectional communication that RPM filtering requires. I'm going to show you how to go ahead and get all that set up on this quadcopter so you can use the new Betaflight 4.1 and all the new RPM filtering settings. Let's go ahead and go into the computer, and I'm going to show you how to get this guy all set up with the new Betaflight 4.1 firmware, get the RPM filtering turned on, and get this BL-Heli-S ESCs flashed to the firmware that supports the bidirectional communication for RPM filtering. Please make sure you read the JESC install instructions word for word. Make sure you do it exactly like it says here. You want to make sure that your ESC will allow this firmware. Now, the Iflight Nazgul5 does allow, the ESCs do have an H in the middle letter, and that means that this ESC is supported. But you want to make sure you double check and make sure that all of the ESCs that you want to flash are going to be able to support the bidirectional D-shot. I'm going to put this down in the video description. This is from the GitHub on the Google Chrome. You need to download the JESC configurator, and this is the version 1.2.5. This is the latest release configurator, and this is going to allow you to get the new firmware that actually allows for 48 kilohertz PWM frequency for the BL-Heli-S ESCs, which is definitely going to make for a better flight experience. So what you want to do is scroll down here and find the correct configurator for your operating PC. I'm using the Windows 32 system, so I'm going to go ahead and download this. Just double click, and then once you download it, you'll go ahead and extract it, and then you can go ahead and open it. Now, once you've downloaded the configurator, go ahead and go here to the jflight.net. Now, if you scroll down here at the bottom, you'll see you have these add to carts here for the firmware. You actually have to purchase the firmware, but he did put a lot of time and effort into making this firmware available so that you can utilize RPM filtering with your BL-Heli-S ESCs, which normally would not be able to support bidirectional D-shot. So, what I did was I have a 4-in-1, so I just selected the JESC firmware ×4, and it's $4.99 without tax. If you have tax, it's going to be somewhere around $5.94, so $6. Definitely worth it to be able to use the RPM filtering in the new Betaflight 4.1. So you'll just add that to the cart, you'll pay for the licensing of this firmware, then you can come back to the configurator itself, and that's where you'll actually flash the firmware. So you're going to go ahead and plug in your micro USB, click connect, make sure your propellers are off. What you need to do now is plug in your battery power, and then you're going to click read setup. And this is going to read your current setup. Now, I've already have mine flashed to the newest firmware, but what you're going to do is you're going to come down here, select the firmware, which should have the license on there, and then once you get it selected, you're going to click Flash All, and this button will flash all 4 of your ESCs. And with the newest version of the JESC firmware, you actually get to utilize the 48 kilohertz PWM frequency. So really quite simple. Once you flash everything, just double check, make sure all your settings are the same, make sure your motor direction is the same as what it was, which mine, it didn't change the motor direction in mine, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. So now that you've done this part, now we're ready to go to the Betaflight configurator. Okay, you're going to put the quadcopter in DFU mode. You can do this a couple different ways. You can type in BL in the CLI and hit enter. That should force it to go into DFU mode. If that doesn't work, you can go to the setup and you can go ahead and put activate bootloader, or you can do it the manual way, push and hold in on the bootloader button while you plug in USB. Once you get the DFU mode, you can come to update firmware. Now you're going to choose for the Iflight Nazgul5, you're going to choose the Betaflight F4. Select the newest version of firmware, load the firmware online, and then flash. Once it's done flashing, you're going to go ahead and connect. Okay, now that you're in the Betaflight configurator, go ahead and set your D-shot to 300, turn on bidirectional D-shot, and set your motor poles to 14. That's the number of magnets these motors have. Now you want to run D-shot 300, and you want to run your gyro and pitot loop at 4K and 4K. These are the optimal settings for this particular flight controller when you want to utilize RPM filtering. You want to come down here and make sure air mode's turned on, also the dynamic filter's turned on, and anti-gravity's turned on. Okay, here in the PID tuning tab, you can see these are the PIDs that I have. They work pretty well, but feel free to use stock PIDs as well. The stock PIDs work pretty good as well. Go into the filter settings and slowly move over the filtering buttons to the right, but make sure you check your motor temperature and make sure that they're not getting too hot. I was able to go this far and they still feel cool to the touch, and if you want to go even further, you can. Down here, you want to set your dynamic notch filter at these settings, also the RPM filter at these settings. And you can find this information in the GitHub Betaflight 4.1 information there on the website. And also, with going to Betaflight 4.1, you're also going to have to do a little bit of extra work to get your smart audio set up. We now have the video transmitter tab here, and we're going to have to go to this page and click on this. This is going to actually bring you to a GitHub website where it actually has all your pre-set determined VTX tables. The reason they're doing this is sometimes when you go in your OSD in the older versions, the actual milliwatt output would not actually match what your video transmitter actually outputted. This is going to make sure that you can set it up exactly to be reading what exactly you're putting out as far as your VTX. So you're going to choose the particular protocol VTX, whether it be the TBS Smart Audio, or if you're using the Tramp protocol. You're going to go ahead and click on, right-click on that, and you can go ahead and save to file. And then you can actually click back in the Betaflight configurator. You can actually upload that file. You can also do a copy and paste if you want to copy the configuration here and paste it in the CLI. That will work as well. Honestly, I think it's probably a little bit easier to just do the right click and import from file. That seemed to be really well, and it filled out the table exactly for my VTX the way it was supposed to. And then you're going to go ahead and save, and then that should have your smart audio working again. Well, I think you all agree that it's not really that difficult to go ahead and get this Iflight Nazgul5 set up with the new Betaflight 4.1 with the RPM filterings, and get the ESCs set up with the new firmware, the JESC firmware protocol that lets you run the bidirectional D-shot. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And put down in the comments your thoughts and opinions on how the new Iflight Nazgul5 was to get set up with the Betaflight 4.1. And if you have any other questions, I'll be glad to get to them for you. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Till next time, eDrone out.